Welcome, everybody, to episode number 231 of the Healthy Habit Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dayan of Healthy Habit Medical Center, and we're talking today with Jolie Root, back from last time we spoke, episode 120. It's our third time talking together here. Jolie Root, Senior Nutritionist and Educator at Carlson Labs, is a nurse, nutritionist, health educator, and medical journalist who's been active in the natural products industry for 40 years. Jolie travels throughout North America and abroad, attending medical conferences, lecturing, and educating about the role of nutrition in integrative medicine. And I'm excited today to dive into the topic of the Omega-3 difference when it comes to Carlson Labs. You know, talking about the highest quality deep cold water fish being sourced, and much more. We'll cover vision, joint health, immune system health, skin, you know, the role that omegas play in cardiovascular health as well, and overall wellness. Welcome back, Jolie.
Thanks. It's so nice to be here with you. I can't believe you've done so many
Yeah,
podcasts. My gosh,
yeah,
you're prolific at content creation.
that's right. We keep going. We keep going. So, but yeah, like I said, 120. You were with us now, 231, and then I want to give the third one as well, just so someone, if you can go to our YouTube channel and in the search bar under our page, just type in Jolie, and you'll see the next one was 95. So 95, 120, and 231. So where do you want to start us off with here when it comes to Omegas, Carlson Labs? This might be someone's first time hearing about Carlson in general. Maybe you can intro us into the company, and then we'll go into
Yep,
our episode, into our topic.
definitely. So Carlson, we're celebrating a 60th birthday this year, and we were founded by Susan Carlson, who at her training was she was a registered pharmacist, as were a number of her family members, and took kind of an unexpected direction in her career because her father had a heart condition that wasn't responding well to the medications of the day. And her mom was a natural food store shopper and an advocate of supplements and healthy diet. And
Hmm.
so she kind of heard about this clinic in Canada, the Shoot Institute, and they were using vitamin E with people that had heart issues.
Hmm.
So off they went, and the Shoot brothers, Wilfred and Evan Shoot, put Susan's father on a vitamin E that was not really readily available in the American marketplace. And he began to have a cessation of his symptoms. He was suffering from pain and shortness of breath and was weak. And
Right.
so the turnaround was so amazing. I think that her dad said something like, "I feel like I'm 10 years younger." And it they were entrepreneurs, so
Wow.
they thought, we need to tell everybody about this vitamin E, and moreover, maybe we should bring this vitamin E to the United States. And
Uh-huh.
that is really how it happened. And so she went out and started talking to cardiologists, but again, 1965, and the cardiology community looked at her and said, "There's no way that vitamin E turned your father's heart
Right.
issues
They're
around.
skeptical.
We just see no relationship whatsoever." And what we know is vitamin E actually does support the health of the heart, and the form of vitamin E was a succinate form, and that, it just turns out, really impacts the mitochondria, which was, his condition was an issue of mitochondrial
Right.
failure. And so, I don't think it was placebo, but nonetheless, the cardiology community wasn't ready to talk. So
Yeah,
they
sure.
turned to the natural product community and started selling vitamin E, was the very first of the Carlson products. And of course, that's ancient history. I think we're coming up on 600 formulas or something
Oh,
at this.
wow.
So we have grown as a company, and I like to say A to zinc.
Uh-huh.
But the omega-3s, the vitamin D, are absolutely the core of our business at this point in time.
And that's, again, the omega-3s and vitamin D. Those are the big ones.
Yeah.
And do you still have the vitamin E, the original? I'm looking right now on
Yeah,
carlsonlabs.com.
what we have now is we don't have the original. It was called Key E tablets,
Okay.
and we don't. But we do have a line of vitamin E products,
Uh,
and we've got the E gems Elite, which is the tocopherols and tocotrienols, is one of my favorites. The Gamma E gems is one of my favorites as far as the vitamin E products are concerned. But that really isn't, they're not bestsellers for us anymore. They let
right.
us into the game, but in terms of top sellers, it is the omega-3 products, a number of our best-selling omega-3 products, and then the vitamin D products, both in the little liquid drops, the
Yeah.
Super Daily D3 products. We're starting to see the vitamin D and vitamin K combinations coming along. Magnesium is in our top selling group. Cinnamon is in a top selling group for us. And I think it's really only moments before melatonin is as well, because
Got
people are
it.
really starting to understand a lot of the broader influence that melatonin has on the body. So, there are a lot, but omega-3 far and away leads the pack for us.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for that little background there on Carlson Labs. That's important. It really gives perspective, right, into this company, and it's one
Yeah,
of the OGs in the natural products industry, right, Jolie? I go
for
way
sure.
back. So omega 3s, how do we know if we're getting enough? It looks like 95% or more. Some stats say 85 or 90. We know it's up there. Percent of
Yeah,
Americans don't get enough EPA and DHA.
right.
Many health professionals, they recommend 250 to about a gram a day. Average in America, 113 milligrams a day. That's 113. Whereas you look in places like Japan or other South Asian countries, they're getting 2,400, 2.4 grams a day on average,
Yeah.
just as a population naturally in the diet. So where do you want to start us off with when it comes to omegas?
Well, I think that that's a great place to start, which is to say that most people in North America are not meeting the mark. And although physicians typically will recommend somewhere between 250 and 1 gram, 1,000 milligrams,
Yeah.
I go to 2,000 milligrams for adult body weight people. And the reason for that is because we now, for the last couple of decades, have had the capacity, the capability to test omega-3 with a red blood cell test, which is a little finger stick test, and find out exactly where a person is on the concentration of EPA and DHA in the membranes of the red blood cells.
Uh-huh.
And that's a window into where are you in terms of omega-3 in the membranes everywhere else in the body. And the cell membranes are an important place for the omega-3s to be, although that's not the only place that you find them. But the 2,000 milligrams that I mentioned for people that are adult body weight people, that will put 97% of adults up to about 8% on an omega-3 index, which is the test that we recommend.
Uh-huh.
And the benefit of that is just more and more well understood. But what we realize is that people that are at the low end of the omega-3 index, and by the way, that's the majority of people in North America, are at high risk for major adverse cardiovascular events, for major decline in cognition as we get older,
Right.
or if it's a young woman who is down at 4% or below, she would be at risk for early preterm birth if she were pregnant. So there are a lot of pretty significant health consequences in not having an optimal intake of omega-3. So that's kind of
Hmm.
where I think the most important messaging should be for people like you and people like me that communicate about health, is that
Right.
there is so much bang for the buck just in looking at heart disease. A person at 8% compared to a person at 4% or below, based on the Framingham study, based on Physicians Health study, and some big studies that we've been following populations for years, looking at their incidence rates of major adverse cardiovascular events,
Right.
and the worst of all being sudden cardiac death. A person who's at 8% compared to a person at 4% is 90% less likely to experience the worst of all major adverse cardiovascular events,
Wow.
which is sudden cardiac death. So a 90% change in risk of something like that, compared to the person that's all the way down at the lower end.
Right.
Does that mean that omega-3 prevents all heart attacks? No, it doesn't. But omega-3 does improve the likelihood of a person not having a
Right.
coronary event. Oh, and surviving if they do, maybe, less of of a less likely that it's going to end up being fatal. Um,
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely important. We know for sure by now. I mean, there's been meta-analyses done that they're important for cardiovascular health. Now, is it the only variable? No, but they do control for other variables too in those studies to
that's
make sure
right.
that the benefits that we're seeing are specifically from the omegas. So, thanks for breaking that down. I mean, it just goes to show how important seafood and sea vegetables have been in human evolution, right? They've always been, if they're a critical part of our health and well-being and disease prevention, we got to be getting them in the diet too. So what would be the sources of that? Obviously, fish,
So cold water
seaweed.
fish, yeah, algae. Where the fish get them is from algae, and that's where we will end up going in terms of supplementation in another decade or two. I think that the
It's more
algal,
sustainable.
yeah, it's just that with the way that the population is growing and the difference between optimal intake and the reality, which is 114 milligrams, um, we're not going to have the capacity to ramp up that much fish oil to get, everyone to optimal intake. It's
Right.
going to have to be plant sourced at some point in time. So there are some very good people working on that, and there are, as far as the sustainability of the fish as we know it now, there are some very good people working on that too. So you've got United Nations and Food and Agriculture Organization, you've got all kinds of non-governmental organizations that are policing the fisheries, that are, measuring. They go out and they do test runs at the beginning of fishing seasons, and they measure what's the percentage of juveniles, and if the percentage of juveniles is too high, then they stop the season. They actually shut the season down because we're not going to contribute to
Oh, interesting.
overfishing.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
there are a lot of people that are working on this issue. DHA in particular is absolutely critical for the development of another human being, even starting at the point of conception, starting at the point of how viable is the sperm. That is a DHA thing.
Right.
So we must have it. We must figure out better ways of making it available to people in affordable ways and in levels that will continue us being healthy
Right.
going
Right.
forward as a global population.
And obviously, we'd have to eat a lot, like pounds and pounds of actual seaweed, like those little slices of seaweed, compared to just a little couple ounces of salmon.
Right.
Correct? It's just much more concentrated.
Yeah.
Obviously, if the technology improves for supplements, you wouldn't need to take so many algae supplements to get it.
Well,
But
we've got one now that is 900 milligrams in a liquid dose, in a single dose, and
okay.
we've got some capsules that are 500 milligrams. So it's getting better. It used to be that most of the original algal derived DHA supplements were 100 milligrams, and
Uh huh.
so that's a long way off from what I'm saying is you need 2000. A pregnant woman from week 20 to the time when she has the baby needs 1,000 milligrams a day of DHA. And so you see, if it was only 100 in that algal supplement,
Yeah.
taking 10, that's not reasonable. So we've gotten better, and also the technology of developing the algae and controlling the environment that the algae is raised in is contributing better to the aquaculture, which is how we're feeding the
Right.
fish that are farmed out in the oceans, so that it's not, when in the 1980s, when I was first talking about farmed fish, they were feeding them chow, actual kind of
Mm,
grain-based foods, and that's not what fish eat. And that was contributing to a much lower amount of omega-3 in the fish themselves than
interesting.
if they were eating a normal diet. And that
Right.
has changed. So now sometimes the farm fish are actually higher than the wild fish. Um,
Gotcha.
so it's eh, as I said before, there are a lot of very good scientists that are working on the availability of these omega-3s for, populations in order to help people be healthy.
And I just did a quick screen share here as Jolie was finishing that thought. That's very interesting here. And if you go to carlsonlabs.com and at the top left, you'll see shop all. You can just hit that and hit plant based products because we did just cover the algae. And then this will show you their whole collection here of vegan, vegetarian friendly options as well. They have the baby's plant based super daily D3. They have the D3, but then of course here's the prenatal DHA, vegetarian DHA. So there's the different options right there. And you said more are coming, different ones, or
Well, in the
oh,
industry
gotcha. In
wide.
general, yeah,
So there are going to be other plants that are, flax is one, but flax is ALA, but they're doing some. It's going to be controversial because they're doing some genetic modification of
mm.
canola plants,
Uh
for
oh,
example, the rapeseed
yeah,
plants. And the thing that is good about this is that they're able to be grown without being watered. So it's less use of water. They can just grow naturally out in the fields in what is becoming a warmer and warmer climate.
got it.
Most of these are grown up in Canada.
Uh huh.
Um, Rainfall can be unpredictable, so they're, as far as being able to get out there and water, those massive fields of rapeseed. So
Right.
if it's able to be dry farmed and it's modified so that it's high in EPA and DHA rather than alpha linolenic
Yeah.
acid, or linoleic acid, that's going to be a game changer, but we're not there yet. The big agribusiness companies are aware of the need and they're working on it, but there's also going to have to be, you know, GMO is gotten to be such a bad, it leaves a bad taste in
Exactly.
everyone's mouth. So they will never be able to sell them in Europe, for example.
Right.
So,
Good
that's
point.
it's going to be interesting to see if the acceptance can be brought around that, this is GMO in a good
In
way,
a good way, right?
and
It doesn't matter. As soon as they hear that word, it shuts off any further discussion.
that's
Um,
exactly right.
but
So we'll see. That
yeah,
remains to be seen. But the algae thing is much more promising, and you can get both EPA and DHA now from algae. And so
interesting.
the challenge will be to continue to make it affordable. And the reality is, and this is sad,
Right.
everything is so much more expensive. And that a lot of what our industry sells is imported. So you have a lot of uncertainty
Yeah.
as far as what's going to be going on, just in terms of the way that the world is today. If big tariffs go into place, that is going to raise the prices of a lot of
Oh
these
yeah.
things, because
100%.
and also true about food, also true about produce. So What's disheartening to me about that is that, we should be trying to go in the other direction so that healthier options are more affordable, not less
Right.
affordable, so that healthier options are available at all socioeconomic levels,
Sure.
so that people that are working, for example, gig economy jobs or minimum wage jobs are still able to go out and eat fresh produce and buy supplements if they need supplements or want to improve, their diet or their intake of really important nutrients like vitamin D, like
Oh
the
yeah,
omega-3s.
that makes sense.
So,
Absolutely.
I'm an advocate for trying to figure out a way to make things more accessible for people and not less accessible.
And that's why we have you on, Jolie. That's why we're here talking. That was a beautiful breakdown. Thank you for that. If you guys are just tuning in or just walking into the store here, you're listening to episode 231 of the Healthy Habit Podcast. And I'm your host, Dr. Dayan, and we're here today with Jolie Root. We've been breaking down omega-3s. We gave a little intro to Carlson Labs in the beginning. We talked about the ideal omega-3 intake, how Americans are far below where we need to be for proper health and longevity and disease prevention, especially cardiovascular disease. We hit on the dietary sources of omega-3s, plant-based options. And then one common question we get, Jolie, is where to start. Like some people will go here in our omega-3 section
Yeah.
and they get in front of all the Carlson options and they get kind of intimidated. They don't know, where do I start? They know it's important. They've been reading about the
Right.
importance of omegas, been listening to shows like this. They're ready to
Sure.
start. But what's the most common starting point for omega-3s? You mentioned the vitamin Ds and the omegas are the top selling, most popular now in demand products at Carlson. What's the most popular starting point for omega-3s?
Well, the decision is, do you want a liquid or do you want something that's in a capsule? Because what we want everyone to do is start taking omega-3s, get to a reasonable, optimal intake of omega-3s. So let's break that down first. Let's say you eat salmon a couple of times a week. That nets most people, if it's, let's say, a 4 ounce serving of salmon, which is reasonable, or even, a 6 ounce serving, that averages you out to about 500 milligrams combined EPA and DHA daily. That 2 meals of salmon nets you about 500 milligrams over the 7 day period. So that means that if we're working toward my magic number of 2000, that means your supplement should be giving you somewhere around 1500 to make up the difference. So there, if you were willing to take a liquid, that would be Carlson makes the very finest fish oil, and that is basically exactly what a teaspoon would give you.
Mm,
It's 1600 milligrams of omega-3s. So that would make up the difference for you. And that 1 teaspoon could be stirred into yogurt, or it could be sprinkled over your salad, or it could be put in a smoothie. And so
mm,
that would be a way to do it. If you wanted capsules, and let's say you don't eat fish, but you're open to the idea of supplementing with some fish oil.
right.
So then I would go for Carlson's Maximum Omega 2000 because it's 2000 milligrams of omega-3 in 2 capsules. You pop them in at dinner time and you're done. I say dinner time because we want some fat present in some food that we're eating at the time that we take the fish oils in
Right.
order to get the bioavailability up at peak where you want it to be. So, I'm hoping they're having a salad with a vinaigrette dressing with some good olive oil, or
Hmm.
maybe some avocado or something like that, where some really healthy fat is also in that meal. And that would be where I would do that. And so Maximum Omega 2000 for people that just don't, they just are going to say to you, I'm not eating fish twice a week. I
Right.
don't, I just know I'm not going to. We have Elite Omega-3, which is it's a little less potent. It's about 1600 milligrams in 2 capsules. So if you did eat the fish a couple times a week, then the Elite Omega-3 in 2 soft gels
Just
might
kind
be
of round it out.
perfect thing you kind of want to think about. And the other thing that people don't talk about, and this is, we don't sell eggs, so this is really just unsolicited, but
Got it.
there are omega-3 eggs in the world, and the DHA in that egg yolk is basically on average 5 times higher than the not omega-3
Oh wow.
eggs. So a
How do
typical
they
egg,
do that? How do they make that happen?
they
Seafood? Like, yeah.
chickens better than humans can elongate the alpha, the ALA, the shorter chain omega-3 into EPA and DHA.
Like feed
DHA,
them
what I said
flax and
before,
things like that.
you gotta have DHA to develop an infant.
Right.
So the purpose of that egg yolk is to develop a little chicken. So there's a lot of DHA in there. And especially if she eats, yes, they give them flax, they give them camelina, they give them other things that are really omega-3, plant omega-3 rich.
Right.
And the chicken metabolizes it into omega-3 in the egg yolk. So you could get 250 milligrams in an egg yolk also.
Interesting.
So I know eggs are expensive, but
Right.
nonetheless,
Well, you can use it like a supplement almost. You can treat it like a supplement, right? Like
think
little
of it as
doses
one of
of
the
DHA.
healthiest things that you did, you know.
So I
Yeah,
pulled up a screen share of the products that Jolie just highlighted for where someone could start. If you prefer liquids, we have the very finest fish oil here, and that's in glass, correct, Jolie?
that's right.
Which is
Yep,
important.
yep.
You don't get
We
the plasticizers and the yeah, all
exactly.
the hormone disruptors potential in addition to the yeah. So from the bottling, from just how it's um, yeah, where it's contained in the bottle. So 1 teaspoon here will give you the 4.6 grams total of the Norwegian fish oil, and then it breaks it down there into 1.6 grams of the actual omega-3s. That includes the EPA, DHA, and DPA if you
Yep.
prefer liquids. But then the other side of the spectrum, we have the capsule, well, it's actually technically a soft gel version. This is the Max Omega 2000. If you want to get a really potent dose of EPA DHA and you don't really like to eat seafood, right, Jolie, you were saying. And then if you're already eating seafood, a couple days a week and you want to kind of round things out, we have the Elite Omega 3 gems. So no medical advice here. We're just showing you what's available in one of the OG, old school, first companies here in America when it comes to fish oils and overall supplements and natural health. So Carlson stood the test of time, and here they are still going strong to this day. What's a good take-home message, Jolie? This is a good overview, a good breakdown of not only the company, but what's really popular, the importance of these products, and then some options for our customers. What's a good take-home message here before we have you on next time?
I think that really just understand that the omega-3s are really important for optimal health and that most
Right,
people are not getting enough. So if you wanted to do something that would benefit you from your brain to literally your toes, all being all your joints, all your skin,
right,
optimal health in almost every system in the body, getting onto the omega-3s and sticking with them is an excellent place to start. And I think that people notice the difference. People notice that, for example, as far as cognition is concerned, that they feel a little bit sharper, maybe just a little bit better able to focus, maybe pay
right,
attention to certain things. Memory is a big issue for a lot of people, and people are multitasking, and there are very high stress levels. So there are a lot of factors that impair our memory, but omega-3s are very important for staying sharp. And so I think that it's a lot of supplements, we take them and we think, like astaxanthin, which is a mouthful anyway. It supports immune
yeah,
function. It's a great antioxidant. Um, do you know that it's working? It's not really something that you feel. You just read about it and think that
right,
it's probably a good idea and you take it. The omega-3s, you feel it, you notice it.
right.
So I think that working with a company that you trust, working with a company where you know that it is top of the shelf, it is, they are certified. IFOS, it's the International Fish Oil Standards Program. iGen is a GMO modification program. All the oils are tested. They are free of harmful levels of literally dozens of contaminants. And the IFOS program, the testing program that Carlson uses, it's voluntary. It costs a bunch of money, but all the batches go through there and they actually print the analysis on their website. If
Mm,
someone Google's IFOS omega-3, you can go to Nutrisource Diagnostics website and look at the Carlson test results. And there are other good brands that use IFOS, but
Yeah,
I think that's a selling point for Carlson too.
absolutely.
So,
Well, that was super informative. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on episode 231 and join us here. Our customers are going to appreciate it, Jolie, and look forward to our next one.
yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
CarlsonLabs.com, everybody. CarlsonLabs.com. Thanks, Jolie.